Today I will show you how I build a high gain patch. You may have seen me playing around with my AxeFx or also with the Pliny plugin, the Kemper, whatever. I'm using modeling units quite often because I'm very pleased with the results and of course with the advantages compared to conventional amps. Of course, these modeling units, they are very easy to carry around, you have consistent sound and whatever. But of course you have to know how to use these things. And as I heard, many people are struggling to get a decent tone out of their modeling units. And it's not important if it's the Kemper or the Helix or whatever. At least if you have a modeling unit of decent quality, I'm pretty sure that you can get a decent high gain tone out of this unit. The cheaper units nowadays, in my opinion, they lack a little bit of the dynamics, and also maybe they don't have very good impulse responses, which are the cabinet emulations. But usually, or at least the newer ones, they're able to use third-party IRs, so that should not be the problem. And also the overall quality is on a level where I think it can be used live by a pro. And if you cannot get a good live tone with, for example, the Helix, then maybe the Helix is not the problem. The problem is then maybe that you don't know how to dial it in, or your playing sucks, or your guitar or whatever. Because these units, they are able to deliver very good quality high gain tones. And today I would like to give you a little bit of insight in my thinking when I'm creating a high gain patch just from the scratch. So when there's an empty preset, I would like to explain you my thoughts how to get to a tight high gain tone, like you heard here in the intro. This is my lead tone in the AxeFx3, played with my Schecter Banshee 6FR with EMGs. Found out the EMGs, somehow they work very good with the AxeFx. I don't know why, but yeah, I got the best results, high gain tones with EMG guitars. Whatever. You can see my patch here, and of course this is the final patch. But we would like to start now from the just from the beginning. So let's see. I will go maybe to another patch and clear preset. So this should first of all remove everything from the preset. As you can see here, this is the well, it's an empty preset. And first of all, of course, you need an input block and also an output block. So let's set these things. And where's output 1? And of course we need an amp block and a cap block. So of course you need these things. First of all, you have to maybe choose an amp which should be something that is capable of high gain tones. My all-time favorite high gain amp is the PV6505. So here in the AxeFx, it's called PVH6160, and you got a couple of models here. Let's choose the lead in the plus, which might be the lead channel of the 6505 Plus. You can see behind me. I know this amp, how this amp sounds in reality, and well, it's not my main M model which I use in the AxeFx, so I'm not that familiar with the model here, but well, let's start with this. And the next step, of course, we have to use a to find a cap emulation, an IR, and also here I got a couple of IRs. Of course, I'm using my own IRs, which I was shooting with the tone match block. But this step is very important for a good high gain tone. You have to find the right IR, and as you can see, there are shitloads of IRs here. So I definitely recommend to step through the IRs and find the one which seems to fit your ears or seems to be the closest fit to your taste. And that can be a long process, especially in the AxeFx where we have 2000 IRs. But well, this is important because the more the IR is lacking, then the more you have to adjust afterwards. So well, let's see how this sounds. Maybe rectal. And as you can see, it sounds to me it sounds already very full and rich. So just for the moment I will stay with this. Usually maybe the here the low cut is set to 0. So we can go back to 0 here, or 0 in this case means 20 Hertz, but I think afterwards we will raise it again, because usually I end up with a well, with a low cut somewhere around 100 Hertz, especially for live tones. It's very important. Another thing is usually I'm using the where is it? The smoothing. You can see here I set it at 641. This is a little bit evening out the spikes, or well, it's resolving some phasing issues which most IRs have. Can set it now to 0 again. As you can hear, this is the IR sound, and with the disengaged, it's here. And yeah, this is something, of course, you can only do in the AxeFx. I usually do it, so I will keep it here. Yeah, we would like to get a good high gain tone, and of course, you have to take into account that the tone you're creating, it's designed for a specific environment. So at the moment I'm hearing it through my A7X studio monitors, which are good in my opinion. They are more or less FR and not high class, but definitely usable studio monitors. And if I would dial in a live tone, my approach would be a little bit different. So here my goal is to get a high gain tone that sounds good through these monitors, and then it will be well, something I could use, for example, for recording. So anyway, now we chose the PV60, I would say 6505, because that is something where I'm familiar. It sounds already full and rich, but in my opinion it has a little bit too much bass, a little bit too much mids, and a little bit too less distortion. So the distortion could be more saturated. So usually I'm using the second page here because it has a little bit more options. Let's see if something is engaged here. No. Okay, that's good. Bright switch is turned on. Well, we leave it at that. First of all, maybe we can raise the low cut here, because as I said before, I know this is something which I usually do. And the bass seems to be okay now. At least the very low bass frequencies. Of course they're cut, or well, the low cut doesn't mean they're cut immediately below 100 Hertz. Of course you have to set the slope here. You use a higher slope, then they're cut a little bit more. Okay, let's set it. Let's keep it at that. And yeah, still a little bit too much mids, so let's dial out some of these mids here. Usually you may know that these tone stack controls, bass, mid, treble, they're modeled, at least in the AxeFx, after the real tone stack in the corresponding amp. And that is something which is, of course you can change it here. Maybe I can show you. If you go to the preamp page, you could choose maybe a neutral tone stack. Where was it? Here. Or you could also use change it to an active tone stack, which is more powerful. But as a default, it says default, then that means it behaves like, or it should behave similar to the real amp. And the real amp, the tone stack, it affects certain frequencies, of course. The bass and the mid, and these frequencies are fixed. So usually I try out how these tone stack knobs affect the tone, so which frequencies are affected. And if I cannot, or if they don't affect the right frequencies in my ear, then I will leave it at 5 everything and use the output EQ, which is more flexible because you have more bands. Also you can use variable Q here, which is also something which I do. But yeah, let's start with this. Yeah, so I think here the mids are quite usable, so I would leave it at that. And well, now it still has a little bit too much bass for me. But with the bass, the thing is, I don't know now usually if I should use the depth or the bass control. So I would try out which of these works better. So as you can see, I'm pretty much saying to myself which frequencies are too high and which are too low, and I'm trying to adjust, or at least get a raw adjustment of these of the overall amp tone with these simple knobs here. So that sounds quite good to me. Well, but it has not enough gain in my opinion. So of course we can now try to raise the input. But here, as I don't know if you can hear, but the bass frequencies seem to, or the bass seems to get flubby a little bit. So that was not that successful. So in this case, I would leave it, or I would raise the input until the bass or some frequencies seem to get annoying. Well, here I think I would leave it around 5, and then I would tend to boost some frequencies in front of the input drive section. So you have two options here. One is the input EQ, which is basically an EQ that is located before the distortion stage of the amp. So here you can cut some frequencies. Usually people tend to cut some bass frequencies, which is not in most cases helpful. I set it now around 200 Hertz, and also you can cut some highs, because in my opinion they are not that usable. The highs coming from the pickup. Usually I set these things around maybe 200 or 300 Hertz, the low cut and the high cut around maybe 3 or 4K. Of course, if you reduce the overall volume in some frequency bands, then well, you will get less saturation. So here you can also raise the gain of the of one frequency band, which you could choose here, which is now around the 1000 Hertz. Usually start a little bit lower, around the 800 Hertz. And also I'm boosting only a narrow frequency band, so I set the Q a little bit higher. Well, that might be a little bit too honky, so let's reduce it. And you're boosting a wider frequency range. You can see the honkiness is gone. You can raise it more here to get more saturation, but then it starts to get honky. So let's keep it here at around 5. So it's not honky, but it's still not enough gain for my taste. So we have to get the saturation out of something else. And one possibility is, of course, you can use a drive block in front of the amp, but the amp block in the AxeFx has some drive section built in. So I would start usually to use play around with this. So I will turn the input boost on, and as you can see here on the preamp page, you have more control over the input boost parameters. As you can hear now, you have saturation. But it's still not, or it's not very tight in my opinion. So maybe we can now turn off this again, try how it sounds without this. So as you can see now, I'm just playing around with these two things, the input EQ and also the input boost, and try to find out which combination seems to fit best for this amp. And in my opinion, it sounds better without the boost of the 800 Hertz, but I'm not quite satisfied with the sound, because I think here's too much distortion happening in the very high frequencies. It's a little bit harsh, and usually I like to boost the mids a lot. So you could choose here a boost type which is emulating a mid boost, and usually the one with the well, which is boosting only the mids, is the Tube Screamer 808, and the one which is boosting the lower mids, by the way, would be the full tone OD. So I would start now with the 808, and as you can see, it's a little bit hunky again, which is yeah, very common with the 808. If you would choose the 808 model here in the drive block, you would have more control parameters. I can show you maybe. So let's turn it off here, and where is it? Here you can see here, where is it? You have an additional equalizer to adjust the overall tone of the 808 model, but this will get more complicated. So I think we can get a decent result only by using only the boost section in the amp block. So back to this. So let's try another one, maybe the full tone OD, which is not so honky. And And this one it fits much better in my opinion. And in my opinion, it sounds already very good. So at this point, usually I would save the patch, which I don't do now, but and then I would start fine-tuning the patch. That is something which, well, it is a little bit of a trial and error process. Usually I'm thinking about which things I would like to improve a little bit more, because I'm quite satisfied with the overall sound now. But what I usually do is I set a high cut somewhere, at least somewhere where you cannot hear it. So if you set the high cut in the cap block somewhere around or higher than 10,000 Hertz, then this would help in live situations, and usually it doesn't affect the overall tone, the pitch or the note or the attack. Everything is still there, everything you need. It's just cutting off frequencies which are not very important. So that's something usually I do. And then I'm starting to adjust something with the or fine-tune the overall tone with the graphic EQ. So maybe in this case, maybe there's something in the high end which is a little bit fizzy, which is also the case with the original amp. So with this EQ you have the 8K. With the 7-band EQ you have slightly a different frequencies affected. So I will now play around with these two EQs. I think this works a little bit better for my taste. So well, we will reduce these 6400 Hertz, and we can compensate this by raising the lower band a little bit. And now the annoying hiss is gone. But what happens when you reduce the presence frequencies is suddenly the bass comes into the picture. So here I would, to compensate that, maybe reduce the lower mids a little bit. But these things usually I don't do it drastically here, because as I said, I like the overall tone already. So it's usually around maybe 1 or 3 dB, but not more than that, which I adjust here. So I leave it now at that. And after that, usually I'm adding my other effects which I like to use. For example, the detune effect in the pitch block, or also maybe some reverb, which I like to use, especially when I'm playing by myself. So, but that is not that important, and not affecting the overall tone. So yeah, I hope now it's a little bit it's a little bit clear for you how my thinking process is when I'm creating a patch. I'm usually asking myself always which parts of the frequency band are too loud, where should I reduce the level, in which frequency range, and where should I raise the level a little bit, and also if the amount of distortion, so the saturation, is still fitting. And of course, if something appears like flubbiness in the bass or harshness in the top end, then yeah, I will immediately dial back the gain. So I hope this helps you to get the best results with your modeling unit. Post your comments below, subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you soon. Bye!